This is the Sports Bash Warm-Up with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN. Now, live inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, here's Josh Hennig.
I don't think anyone should question either of those quarterbacks' physical or mental toughness. Everything they've been through, everything that, that they're willing to stand in there and take a hit, knowing that if I can just hang in here a tick longer, I can deliver the ball and make a bigger play. They're almost greedy to a fault at times, but you love that it can pay off in the form of big plays. There's nothing more demoralizing to a defense than giving up a big play.
That was Eric Edholm yesterday here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN. You can catch the full interview where Eric and I talked about Andre Dillard and Jason Peters, more about Jalen Hurts and more over at 97.3ESPN.com. But for now, Josh Hennig here on the warm-up, 609-403-0973. And one of the big things that stood out to me when we talked to Eric yesterday was about what he said about Wentz and Jalen Hurts. We'll get more into that, as well as Dave Weinberg will be joining us coming up this hour as well. You check out his extra points column at 97.3ESPN.com, where he does touch on Jalen Hurts as well. And one of the reasons why it stood out to me, that specific cut from Eric, is that it's seeming more and more that one of the reasons why the Eagles drafted Hurts is because he has specific character traits that this organization seems to desire and want in their quarterbacks. The intangibles, the toughness, the ability to be mobile. They like certain style of quarterbacks, certain style of mentality with those quarterbacks. And I don't think that can be overlooked. I don't think it can be overlooked that Doug Peterson, Howie Roseman, they have a perspective on the quarterback position of things that they want when they draft a quarterback. And it hasn't always worked out. Obviously, not every quarterback that the Eagles franchise has drafted over the last 20 years has worked out. For every Nick Foles, there's also an Andy Hall, right? For every A.J. Philly that got you some assets in return, you got a Clayton Thorson. So, yes, not every quarterback the Eagles draft is going to be a great quarterback, but there is something interesting about the similarities between Wentz and Hurts. The fact that they're both men who have been through different things in their careers. They both have been replaced by backups who won championships. They both are quarterbacks who have had to look over their shoulder a little bit in terms of their careers. They're both men of faith. They're both men who come from, very deep football backgrounds where football is basically everything. You have God and then you have football, and that's 1-2 in their lives. They're both family men. They're both relatively mobile. It can be debated which one is the more mobile, agile quarterback. They're both physically strong human beings. They're both guys who are built a certain way in terms of their physical strength and ability to break tackles and get out of bad situations. But like Eric said, they're both guys who have toughness. They have a desire to make the big play. And when I asked Eric about the fact of Wentz holding the ball too long, he said maybe Hurts does too.
That criticism you just mentioned of Wentz is absolutely true, and I think it's even more true for Jalen, at least last year. Maybe he was given the freedom to do that, but typically a quarterback is going to be asked to not hang on to the ball and put yourself at risk and ask your lineman to pass block for such a long time.
One of the problems for any football team is if the quarterback holds the ball too long because he's looking for a big play or he's looking for things to pan out a certain way, it can cause some issues with the timing of the offense, the timing of the offensive linemen who are trying to block. It's fun and interesting and cool when you see a quarterback scrambling around, but think about how difficult it is for an offensive lineman to hold off an elite pass rusher or even a good pass rusher for 5, 6, 7 seconds. It's borderline impossible. yeah, it opens up more opportunities so the wide receiver can run around and get open as this quarterback is scrambling out of the pocket, but it becomes more and more difficult for the offensive lineman to block because he doesn't know what direction the quarterback is scrambling because he's focused on the guy he's blocking in front of him. He doesn't know exactly how long he has to block the guy, and he's doing his best in that circumstance. So holding the ball for a long time can be a negative in any offense. So if you think about it, the Eagles obviously have a type of quarterback that they like. It's just ironic that they both have a similar negative issue, which is holding the ball too long, looking to make the big play, almost as Eric said, being greedy. And I think it's a very interesting assessment, and maybe that has something to do with why these two guys get along so well and why the Eagles wanted Hurts in the quarterback room, because they feel like there's something that Wentz and Hurts can connect on aside from their faith. It's their football and how they view the game of football. Text board is open at 609-403-0973. And maybe that has something to do as well with how they're looking at Andre Dillard. You know, Peterson said multiple times on Tuesday, we're confident in Andre Dillard. We believe in Andre Dillard. Well, you can have a ton of confidence in him, as Doug Peterson said, but do you genuinely believe that in most situations, Dillard is going to hold up blocking for that long? Do you believe Dillard can hold off on a block for an extra couple seconds? Not saying there's a guarantee that Jason Peters can, but Jason Peters has enough NFL experience to know how to work the situation. He knows how to, for lack of a better term, manipulate a pass rusher. He understands that blocking and maintaining a block and not allowing a guy to get past you is more than just sheer physical ability. He understands that there's a way you set your feet. There's a way you use your hands. There's a way you leverage your body weight onto the other player. You know, one of the things that has become a scouting report on a guy like Khalil Mack, when you watch the teams that slow him down, for example, a guy like Brian Bulaga with the Packers has had a modicum of experience blocking Khalil Mack. What does he do? He leans on him. He basically slows down Mack's ability to get his motor started. At the beginning of the block, he puts his body in front of him and he leans on him. And that's become a scouting report now. When you watch games where Khalil Mack is not having a good game and you see how the offensive linemen start leaning on him, they put their body weight on him. So as he's trying to bend, trying to get around, they're slowing down his ability to get up and going. Well, that's a veteran move. Are we 100% sure that Andre Dillard understands how to properly use that move? Now, we saw last year in one of the games that Andre Dillard played that when a guy beat him, what did he do? He let the guy over pursue. Dillard fell backwards and with his body threw the pass rusher behind the quarterback. And so the quarterback was able to step up in the pocket and make the throw. Very untraditional, but it got the job done. So maybe Dillard is able to come up with ideas of how to make sure his quarterback doesn't get sacked, but he doesn't have the veteran knowledge and experience that Jason Peters does. Is that possibly a reason why Jason Peters is basically considered a backup option, an emergency option, a guy they have to keep in touch with in case Dillard is not 100% ready to go? I think it's a fair question. If you think that a Carson Wentz or a Jalen Hurts or even a Nate Sudfeld, we haven't seen a ton of Nate Sudfeld, but these are all guys who do have a tendency to hold the ball a little bit. They're not known for getting the ball out of their hand quickly. You know, Tom Brady, for example, guys like him, guys like Drew Brees, you know, the quarterbacks, some of the best quarterbacks in the league, they're the ones who get the ball out of their hands quickly. They don't hang on and hang on, hang on. They scan the field as quickly as possible. They see the fastest option. They get the ball out of hand because they don't want to get hit. They don't want to get blasted by the pass rusher coming around the edge or coming up in their face. So they got to get the ball out of their hand as quickly as possible. But if you have quarterbacks who do not get the ball out of their hand quickly, could that be a reason why you have to keep Jason Peters on speed dial? Because if Dillard is not able to handle a situation where the quarterback is holding the ball, yes, Wentz needs to get the ball out of his hands. We all get that. But if he's not going to do it consistently, you have to prepare and game plan your offense and your team for that scenario. And if you have plays that take longer to materialize, if you have different deep routes, if you have different big plays down the seam, it's always great to have the speedster. But even a fast 40 time is 4.3, 4.2 seconds. So if you're at the 30-yard line and you're throwing a deep bomb and the receiver has to run 40 yards, he has to get around the cornerback, get past him on a possible jam, that's almost 5 seconds for him to go 40 yards. Is Carson Wentz or whoever is back there going to have enough time from his offensive line for that deep threat, whether it's Deshaun Jackson or Jalen Reagor or Stallworth from Boise State or Marquise Goodwin, who they acquired in the trade from the 49ers? You know, is that quarterback going to have enough time in the pocket to get the ball to the receiver deep? And I think it's an honest, fair question. Is something I was thinking about overnight last night. Tell me what you think. 609-403-0973. I'm not saying Dillard can't do it. And I'm one of the dudes who's been telling you I have some serious concerns with Jason Peters. I mean, the guy is 38 years old. There's no guarantee he's going to be as good as he was last year. You have a tackle who, yeah, he was one of the best tackles in the NFL for a long time. The dude's going to be in the Hall of Fame one day. The guy's had an incredible career. And his story is incredible as well. But are we 100% sure that Peters is really the best option that you want? He has missed 12 games over the last 3 seasons, from 2017 to 2019. In the previous 4 seasons, he only didn't start 2 games. He hasn't started 12 games in the last 3 years. Previous 4, he didn't start 2 games. That's a huge difference. We don't know what version of Peters is going to come back. Is he going to still be arguably a top 10, top 12 tackle in the NFL? Or does he regress? That's a big reason why I'm on board with saying, just go with the young guy. You moved up and drafted him. You got to put him out there and see what you got. But because of the kind of quarterback you have and because of the kind of offense you might want to run, is Dillard the best option? If you know your quarterback's going to hold the ball, and you know you got deep threats, and you know you have different offensive packages that you're going to be having in place for Deshaun Jackson or Marquise Goodwin or Jalen Reagor or whoever the speed receiver is to get deep. Whatever the route is, whatever the situation is. So if you have a receiver that is going deep, and again, as I said, what are the numbers? If Deshaun Jackson can run 40 yards unabated in under 4.3 seconds, or in Jalen Reagor's case, 4.4 seconds, even if they don't get jammed at the line of scrimmage, that's still 4 seconds. The quarterback has to hold the ball and get the ball deep to a receiver. You're potentially asking the quarterback to hold the ball longer just to make the big play. And if both quarterbacks, whether it's Wentz or Hurts, is in under center and they want to make the big play and they're in shotgun and it's 3rd and 9 and you have 3 options, one of them is an in-out route by Ertz. You have another under route by, let's say, Greg Ward. You have a curl route by Goddard, let's say. And then you have the speed guy goes deep. And let's say it is Deshaun Jackson. I mean, let's say he burns the corner. I mean, let's say he's got a good 10 yards on that cornerback deep. But in order for him to maximize the separation, Wentz has got to hold the ball. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi. And you're playing against a team like the Redskins, who has a new defensive coordinator in Jack Del Rio. Every defense he touches that first year, they make major improvements. You got just drafted Chase. The Redskins just drafted Chase Young. You got guys like Ryan Kerrigan over there. You have these big tackles like Jonathan Allen. And you're asking Dillard, Sayamalu, Kelsey, if Brandon Brooks is healthy, he's out there, and Lane Johnson, all to hold up against some very talented defensive linemen and edge rushers for 3 to 4 seconds to get the ball down the field. That's a lot to ask any offensive lineman. Whether it's a 38-year-old Jason Peters or a little bit inexperienced Andre Dillard, who's coming into his second year in the NFL. 609-403-0973 is the text board to get on the conversation. 609-403-0973, where you can text in. Also coming up this hour, we will be joined by Dave Weinberg, longtime Eagles beat reporter. I mean, he's covered the Eagles from Buddy Ryan to Doug Peterson. He's seen it all. He's seen, let's be realistic, Dave Weinberg has seen more football than many of us have. So I always love getting his insights because he always has a very interesting perspective on a lot of these things. And he talked about Jalen Hurts and the Eagles in his latest Extra Points column at 97.3 ESPN.com. But your text messages right now, 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. Dan from EHT says, Jalen Hurts reminds me of Donovan McNabb on the field. He reminds me of Carson Wentz with the intangibles. He is the perfect specimen for a quarterback. Now, that's interesting, Dan, because, you know, there's a lot of controversy about Donovan McNabb even to this day. You know, how really good was he? You know, was he an underachiever? Was he an overachiever? He didn't have a lot of good receivers in his career. I mean, there was a point where you had Todd Pinkston and Reggie Brown and James Thrash, and I mean, it was a mess. But McNabb still put up some great numbers. I think that your comparison is very interesting because McNabb was very athletic. Before all the injuries started breaking him down in the second half of his Eagles run, he was a very mobile quarterback. He was a guy who used that scrambling ability to give him opportunities to still throw the ball. He wasn't the most accurate quarterback, though, but he was able to make some big plays at times. So I think the comparison is mostly accurate. I think the area where Hurts is different than McNabb is I think Hurts is a better physical specimen than McNabb was because Hurts is an incredibly strong quarterback. I mean, the guy, what he can squat, what he can deadlift, what he can bench press is phenomenal. His physical strength is probably among the best in the NFL today, if not one of the best, hands down. And then, you know, Hurts, I don't know if he's as fast as McNabb. I think it's close, but McNabb maybe in like a 40-yard dash would be a little faster. But I think the comparison is very similar. I think Hurts and McNabb are both quarterbacks who are good throwing on the run. And then you mentioned the Wentz intangibles. Listen, Hurts is a guy that his teammates love him. He's a team-oriented guy. He's always going to put the team first. When he lost his starting job to Tua, he didn't transfer immediately. He stayed at Alabama, and he helped Tua. He worked with Tua. He tried to make him a better quarterback. And when Tua had to leave the game in the SEC championship game, Hurts came in, won the championship game. Here comes the national championship appearance by Alabama. And what does he do? He goes to Oklahoma, leads them into the college football playoffs as well. So we know Hurts has the intangibles, the leadership, the team-first mentality. And you're right. You know, in many ways, he is the ideal quarterback that you want. The question is he going to be 100% ready to play? You know, we know that there's no offseason with mini camps or OTAs. So a lot of these guys, the rookies especially, they're virtually learning the offense. And there's not a lot of time on the field for them to get hands-on work with the other receivers, with the coaches, with the timing. So I think Hurts' development is not going to be 100% there day one, but it's definitely a guy that I think very high of personally. Let's get another text in here, 609-403-0973. Rob from Bayville chimes in. Rob says, my main complaint with Hurts, the Hurts draft pick, is that he just won't see the field enough to justify the high pick. Even if Hurts works out great, I still think they would have been better off going after a wide receiver. Part of the reason, Rob from Bayville goes on to say, part of the reason why Wentz holds the ball longer is the fact that he couldn't trust his receivers. The best draft in the world will result in half the guys working out. Give Wentz another shot at a good receiver there. And I hear what you're saying, Rob. The problem is that some of the receivers who were available there, who were highly rated, they weren't all speed guys. So you have to think about, all right, well, what do we value more? And I hear exactly what you're saying, Rob. But I'm going to give you the Eagles. I don't agree with this point, Rob, but this is the Eagles' argument. They couldn't pass up a guy who they think is a legitimate starting quarterback in the NFL. And, Joe Banner, who was on the Inside the Birds podcast, Inside the Birds powers football at 4 every day on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Joe Banner told Adam Kaplan and Jeff Mosher that it still haunts the Eagles that they didn't get Russell Wilson. And Howie Roseman was in that room. And Doug Peterson was part of that coaching staff that year for that draft. You have to think that that was part of the reason why they drafted Hurts. Because they want to expand the offense. They want to add a little Lamar Jackson / Taysom Hill element into the offense. We all get that. But they also look at Hurts as a legitimate quarterback. They look at Jalen Hurts as a guy who might be a future franchise quarterback, and they didn't want to pass it up. And guess what? Wentz holds the ball, whatever the reason is. He couldn't trust his receivers. His receivers couldn't get separation. He was trying to make the big play. Whatever the reason is, the longer you hold the ball, the more opportunities the defense has to hit you. And guess what, Rob? If you drafted a wide receiver in the second round, there's no guarantee he sees the field. You said it yourself. The best draft in the world will result in half the guys working out. That's what you said in your... Well, what if one of those half is that second-round pick? Then we're going to rip Howie and the Eagles for having a bust of a second-round pick at receiver. It's a no-win for the Eagles. There's no offseason for these receivers to get up to speed. There's no offseason for them to get timing down with Wentz and in the offense. There's no mini camps. There's no OTAs. There's a possibility that the majority of rookies who are drafted this year have almost little to zero impact in the first half of the season. Because it might take them that long to get up to speed with teams' offenses. So I hear what you're saying, Rob. But I also hear what the Eagles are saying. And I don't think that the Eagles are right and you're wrong or that anything like that. But I think there's a larger picture, a factor in here than is being currently discussed at times. But Rob, I appreciate your text. It was well thought out. And I like the fact that you really thought that through to put out a very thought-provocative text. Please text in again. We'll get to more text messages coming up, 609-403-0973. Also, Dave Weinberg, longtime Eagles beat reporter. Again, I mean, this is the guy who's covered the Eagles from Buddy Ryan to Doug Peterson. His extra points column is at 97.3 ESPN.com. We'll get into more of the Eagles with him as well this hour. Josh Hennig, that's me, here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app. 128, Josh Hennig hanging out with you here on the warm-up 97.3 ESPN. Text board is open, 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. 609-403-0973. Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts, Andre Dillard, Jason Peters, NFL. Whatever's on your mind. I'm here for it. 609-403-0973. Still to come this hour, longtime Eagles beat reporter Dave Weinberg will join us as well. Talk about some of this stuff. But right now, back to the text board. 609-403-0973. John in Collingswood chimes in. He says, Josh, I think you're forgetting the amount of time the ball is in the air. Quarterback has to get the ball out by 2.5 seconds to hit Jackson 40 yards down the field. Carson doesn't work that quickly. That's John in Collingswood. Well, first of all, you're using that 2.5 seconds. I don't think that's a fair number because you have to think about a couple things. One, is Deshaun Jackson jammed at the line of scrimmage? How long is it taking the work off of the jam? Number two, is it a straight go route? Is it a Z route? Is it a fade route? Is it a post route? Is it an out route? I just threw about 5 different things at you, but you got to think about it. There's different timing for all of those things. So 2.5 seconds, you can't use that as a flat number. Carson Wentz can work that quickly. We've seen him do it in December when he didn't have a deep threat, and he had to get the ball out of his hands much more quickly to guys like Greg Ward and Miles Sanders and Ertz and Goddard. You know, when he was dealing with the guys like, you know, the underwhelming receivers, he was having to do more timing routes. He's having to do a little bit more anticipation. So, and there was a little bit of see it and throw it as well in this game. But the point is that I think he can work that quickly. The issue isn't the time of the ball in the air, because the time of the ball in the air varies on every route. But I'm saying as a general principle, the deeper a receiver runs, the longer it takes for the play to play out. The deeper you have to throw the ball, the longer the play progresses, the longer the quarterback has to hold the ball. But John, even as you said, let's say Carson doesn't work that quickly. Let's just say under your theory, Carson can't make a decision in under 3 seconds. That's still a question about the offensive line, is it not, John? Is there not a question of, can the offensive lineman hold up for as long as Wentz needs to make said pass down the field? Or let's say, as you said, let's say Wentz doesn't work that quickly. Let's say he's a minimum 3-second guy when it comes to making a decision. That's still 3 seconds that the offensive line has to hold off, for example, with the Redskins, who will play twice this year. Chase Young, Ryan Kerrigan, Jonathan Allen. You got some pretty talented players on that defensive front for the Redskins. And you're asking this offensive line to hold off all these guys for that long? It's just hard, man. And if you can't depend on your offensive linemen, I think that's a question to be asked. 609-403-0973. Dan from EHC follows up and says, watch tonight's replay of Clemson-Alabama championship game. Hurts was good. Well, first of all, Dan, I wasn't disagreeing with you that he was good. I think you misunderstood what I was saying. You're preaching to the choir, man. Listen, I was the guy who was saying I like Jalen Hurts more than Jordan Love as a quarterback prospect in the NFL. I agree with you that Hurts is good. But I'm just saying that there are limitations on him because of the offseason. Listen, I'm not denying his potential. I'm not denying his talent. But Dan, and from EHC, and anybody else out there who likes Hurts, you can't overlook the fact that without an offseason of OTAs and minicamp, and at the first day Hurts is working in a full offensive scrimmage practice, is training camp, he's behind. If he was drafted last year, and when there was no pandemic, when there was no, each state has their own rules of reopening and all such, when the rookies were arriving at the NovaCare Center in early May, and they were getting ready for minicamp in early June, Jalen Hurts would have been in the building, working with the coaches, working with the offense, working with the receivers, Carson Wentz, pointing things out to him. None of that's going on right now. It's all virtual. Listen, he may be the smartest dude on earth, but intelligence and ability to spit back out information and remember plays does not replace the need for hands-on repetitions, for hands-on practices. It goes hand in hand. Hurts needs to know the offense, and he needs repetitions in the offense. And I don't think it could be overlooked that whether it's him, whether it's Jalen Reagor, whether it's any of these rookies, Quez Watkins, John Stallworth from Boise State, even Marquise Goodwin, none of these guys, these new players, are having experience on the field, getting the reps with their new teammates, figuring out the timing. We saw Tom Brady, the video yesterday of him working with his guys in Tampa and Florida. Well, Florida, you can do that. You might not be able to do that in some states. You might not be able to go out and have a throw-around game in certain states. They may prevent you from being out of your house. And even if Wentz got everybody to his house in New Jersey or said, let's all go to North Dakota, well, are we sure that we're allowing everybody in the state? One of the issues with the NBA is that it was in the ESPN report yesterday. It was at the very end of the report. I'm glad I read through the whole post by Adrian Wojnarowski, and that is, you have a guy like Luka Doncic. He went back home to Europe before they locked down the U.S. borders. Well, according to Woj's report, the NBA said to the U.S. government, well, some of our guys are not in the country. What do we do? The U.S. government said, oh, we'll help you get this guy back. We will help you get him back into the country. So if you have a guy who helped you get back into the country, that's one thing. But state to state, that's a different conversation. If Carson Wentz is in Jersey and Jalen Reagor isn't, are we really sure that Jalen Reagor will be allowed to leave his state anytime soon? Or what about Jalen Hurts? It's not like he can work out with the coaches. He can be on a virtual call with the coaches. But are they going to be on a virtual call while he's in his backyard throwing to somebody? It's not one and the same. There's only so much you can do virtually. Sal Palantonio, who joins the Sports Bash with Mike Gill on Fridays, he'll be back on tomorrow for a Sal Pal Friday. Well, he said on NFL Live this week, he said, quote, the challenge is working through a computer screen and not face-to-face. That's what Doug Peterson told Sal Pal via text message. You can't build chemistry that way. That's from Doug Peterson. That's from a guy in Doug Peterson who was Dan Marino's backup, was Brett Favre's backup, was the starting quarterback in Philadelphia before Donovan McNabb took over. He had over a decade as a player in the NFL. Then he has been a coach in the NFL since the early 2010s in Philadelphia and Kansas City, and now back as the head coach. Doug Peterson told Sal Palantonio, if you see the full set of quotes about the team at 97.3 ESPN.com, again, Sal Pal will be on the Sports Bash tomorrow, can't build chemistry, he said, through a computer screen. And I'm supposed to believe that Jalen Hurts is going to be up to speed, or Jalen Reagor, or Marquise Goodwin? I can't believe that. Listen, unless everybody's in the same state as Wentz, he can't work with guys in the offseason. And as the restrictions lift, and as the world evolves, and as, there's debates about tests going up and hospitalizations going down, and the PGA is playing, but the NBA is still ramping up, and the NHL's got to get people back from Canada or into Canada. But the whole world just, basically all kinds of stuff is moving in right now in different directions. I don't believe for 1 minute that any of these guys are going to be 100% up to speed when training camp, let's say training camp does start on time at the end of July. You're telling me that from The day Hurts was drafted, which was the end of April, which was a month ago now. So you have April to May, May to June, June to July. 3 months. No face-to-face work. No field time, as the Eagles like to call it. No time on the field. Even Doug Peterson admitted to Sal Paolantonio that they got to proceed a little bit slower than normal. This is the quote from Doug Peterson. You can check it out right now at 97.3 ESPN.com. Quote, Jalen is about right now just learning and picking up our system. He's another young player that we drafted who there's a lot to learn from the quarterback position. That's Doug Peterson. So Dan and EHT, I agree with you 100%. I love Jalen Hurts. Listen, if you asked me going into the draft, how did I rank my quarterbacks? I would have told you I would have gone Herbert over Tua because I'm worried about Tua's injuries. And then Tua was 2 after Herbert. And then number 1 was Joe Burrow. So Burrow number 1, Herbert number 2, Tua number 3. That's my 1 through 3. And we can have argued for 10 million years about Tua and Herbert, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, but I had Jalen Hurts as my number 4 because I love his intangibles. I think he has an underrated arm talent. I think he's a leader. I think he's a guy who works hard. I think he's durable, which is a huge deal now in the NFL. Your availability is, in many ways, your best ability in today's NFL. So I agree with you, Dan EHT. It is 100%. Jalen Hurts is a good quarterback. I'm with you. But don't forget, this is a strange world we're in right now. It's not apples to apples anymore. It's like apples to tomatoes. How bizarre the world is right now. Let's get a text in here before we hit the break. 609-403-0973. Victor in Linwood chimes in and says, gotta add running back and tight end into the pass protection formula. The Eagles were much better with Selleck. Quarterback has to recognize coverage, blitz protection, patterns all in a few seconds. One breakdown makes for a perceived holding the ball too long. That's Victor in Linwood. Yeah, listen, one breakdown goes much more beyond, like you said, just the offensive line. And I don't know if, I don't have the numbers in front of me, have there been that many more quarterback hurries in 2018 and 2019 versus 2017 and 2016? I'd have to look up that exact number, but I do think that Goddard has become a better blocking tight end in the last year and a half. He definitely has the physical body and the willingness to block. I think that one of the reasons why Boston Scott is going to make this team is because I think he's underrated as a third down back. Depending on who the Eagles maybe add to the roster, if it's just going to be Sanders and Scott and Holyfield as the top 3 and Clement as the top 4 backs going in the training camp, well, you got to argue that Clement of those 4 may be the more experienced third down back when it comes to blocking and pass blocking and knowing how to read what's in front of him than compared to an Elijah Holyfield. I'm not 100% sold on Miles Sanders as a pass blocker. I think he still has a ways to go in learning how to read some of those guys who are on the free blitzes, on the weak side. Part of being a running back in pass protection is you have to scan the field, not the same way, but a similar way to a quarterback. Before the snap, you have to be aware of where's the edge rusher coming from? Whose assignment is that? You have to be aware of, is the linebacker coming? Is the nickel corner coming? Whose assignment is that? If I'm not assigned a specific blitzer, if you're the running back, you have to question, okay, whose busted assignment do I have to pick up first? Is it Sayamalu? Is it Dillard? Is it Goddard? Is it Ertz? Is Ertz really blocking, or is he just jamming a guy and then releasing in the open flat? There's a lot of questions that go into the running back has to figure out. Great text messages today. Josh Hennig here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN. 609-403-0973. 0973. Coming up next, Dave Weinberg will get his perspective on Jalen Hurts and the Eagles here on 97.3 ESPN FM. All right, final segment here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN. You can check out his work over at 973ESPN.com, his extra point columns. Dave Weinberg joins me now on the Boardwalk on the hotline. Follow on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19 with some perspective on the Eagles. Because, Dave, as I mentioned before, you've seen all of these incarnations of this team from Buddy Ryan to Doug Peterson, so I'm glad you could jump on this week.
Oh, thanks. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. That means I'm old, I guess.
Well, I want to call you old. I want to call you that you've seen a lot and you can bring a lot of information to the table. That's what I think of it as.
Okay, experienced. Okay, I got it.
Yeah. So one of the things with experience comes with the fact that, as you mentioned in your column, your extra points column, is that, listen, for all the speculation about Hurts or any of these rookies, the fact that there is no minicamp, there is no OTAs. We haven't even seen a situation even similar to this since the 2011 lockout, where these guys are not getting the experience on the field. Talk about how important of an issue that is.
Yeah, that's invaluable to be able to be out there, not only learning the system but implementing it, and the fact that they're not getting the opportunity to do that is a big hurdle that they have to climb. Like I wrote, Jalen Hurts is very talented, and I know there was a lot of people even expecting him to have a big role in the offense, but I wouldn't go that far, at least in the beginning. Because like I said, the fact that he's not getting any on-field experience in the grass, as Doug Peterson likes to say, that's really going to slow his progress, I think.
When you think about this offseason as well, speaking of progress, one of the things we've been talking about this week, Dave, is the whole Andre Dillard situation. There are all the reports and rumors out there about, is Jason Peters going to come back? Is he not going to come back? And I have to think that if this offseason wasn't the way it is, if we weren't in the situation the whole world was in, that has to have a huge impact on why the Eagles would stay in touch with Jason Peters, because Dillard as well is not getting that offseason workout.
Yeah, that's true. I'm of the mindset I think that Andre Dillard is going to be the left tackle, only because I just feel like if they were going to bring Jason back, they would have done it already, especially given the circumstances. But Doug Peterson seemed pretty confident in Andre and his potential, and they seem pretty comfortable with him. At least getting the first crack at that left tackle spot. So I guess they'll probably have Jason on speed dial if he doesn't sign with another team. I'm sure they're willing to bring him back, but I know that he wants to start. He doesn't want to be a backup. So I guess they're just going to ride with Andre for now and hope that he can fill those shoes.
Yeah, Doug used that word confident multiple times on Tuesday. Being around the Eagles and hearing this kind of verbiage before, Dave, how much do you think is that them just trying to reaffirm the message, and how much of that is, Doug actually being confident in Dillard?
That's a good point. I don't know that they're all in on Andre, but I do think that they drafted him in the first round for a reason, which is what, Doug pointed out. And, this is his time. This is his chance, his opportunity. He spent a year learning the system. There was some good, more bad probably, but I think he's better off for it. And as Jason Kelsey and some other guys have said, the biggest drawback with him is he has the quickness and the footwork and the knowledge of the game to play left tackle. It's just that the strength was lacking a little bit. So I would think like an off season, you really don't need to be on the field to build your strength up. So hopefully, and they're hoping that he's taking advantage of these virtual workouts to get the strength that he was sort of lacking last year, bulk up a little bit, and maybe that's the only maybe that was the only thing that's really holding him back. I guess that's the way the Eagles feel anyway.
Dave Weinberg joining me on the Boardwalk Honda hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, aside from obviously Hurts, Dillard, stuff like that, do you have any other issues right now with the Eagles as this offseason progresses and knowing there's not going to be no mini camps, no OTAs? Are there some other issues that you're looking at and saying, man, if they had the mini camps and the OTAs, I could have these questions answered, but I just can't because I can't actually see what's going on. There's no experience for some of these guys.
Yeah, I would guess like the main issue, I guess, is probably the rapport between Carson and the new receivers that they have and the guys coming back. I mean, even Deshaun missed most of the year last year. So I would guess they're going to find a way to get together at some point and work together, even before training camp starts. But for the time being, I think that chemistry that Wentz needs with his receiving core, Jalen Reagor and some of the other new guys, I think that's going to hamper them a little bit. But I will say that I do think that the Eagles have a little bit of an advantage. I know we probably talked about it in the past over the rest of the NFC East, and the fact that their coaching staff, their head coach and coordinators are largely intact, whereas Giants, Redskins, Cowboys are all bringing in new coaches. So even Dak Prescott and Daniel Jones and those guys, they all have to learn new systems. Whereas Carson and company already have that. The veterans already have that system in place.
And Dave, before I let you go, just a quick thought on the news locally. The LPGA ShopRite LPGA Classic has been moved to September 28th through October 4th. To me, it's some great news to me, Dave, that something that has been a huge part of the local landscape in our area for a long time is still going to continue this year.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. It's big. It's a big boost to the region, and as far as just from a sports perspective and an economic perspective, people may or may not know it's probably the biggest sporting event that we have every year, and the fact that the LPGA thinks enough of the area and of the job that the ShopRite Classic does to keep them on the schedule, that really says a lot about the confidence and the faith that they have in them. And yeah, I'm with you. I'm thrilled that they're going to be holding it this year, even if it is in the fall. I don't care as long as they're going to hold it.
Absolutely. And of course, let people know that Dave will be joining me each week on Wednesdays. We're going to bring back the Weinberg Wednesday moving forward here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN. Dave, and I appreciate you joining me each week because I feel like listen, there's a lot to talk about, even though there's not actually sports going on right now. It feels like we can't get away from the news every week. It's just the way the world is going.
Yeah, that's true. And Josh, Roy, I want to thank you for having me. That's really, I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to talking to you every Wednesday.
Absolutely. Of course, people can follow you on Twitter. Of course, you have the Extra Points column at 97.3 ESPN.com at Dave Weinberg 19. As all guests, Dave joins us on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Appreciate the time today, Dave.
All right, Josh. Take care. Thanks again.
Dave Weinberg again. Weinberg Wednesdays each week here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN. Always great to pick Dave's mind on things like the Eagles, the local scene. And as we said, it's a huge deal with the ShopRite LPGA coming back this fall. Yeah, it won't be in the summer, but it'll be a little different environment, a little different look, and maybe a little different is a good thing. Maybe a little bit different allows for a new angle, a new perspective, a new twist and turn, because the weather will be a little bit different for the LPGA. That's going to be December 28th through October 4th. You can see more information about the ShopRite LPGA Classic coming this fall over at 97.3 ESPN.com. Thanks again to everybody for all the text messages today. Thanks for Dave for being able to jump on this week. Again, he'll be joining me every Wednesday for a Weinberg Wednesday here on the warm-up on 97.3 ESPN starting next week.